My name is Paula Walsh, a 28-year-old data analyst in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Through sheer grit, I built a solid career, a stable life, and a home of my own. But when I was in college, my parents made me pay my own way to keep things equal with my brother. He blew through money on cars, clothes, anything that caught his eye while I survived on instant noodles and late-night shifts. They called it fairness. I called it betrayal. Years later, my mother called, her voice trembling. My parents were drowning in debt, their home on the brink of foreclosure, all tied to my brother's reckless schemes. They begged me to bail them out as if my hard-earned success was theirs to claim. A secret they'd hidden for years came to light, pushing me to confront them. What I uncovered changed everything. Have you ever faced a family betrayal that shook your world? Share your story in the comments. I'm reading everyone. Stick around to see how I faced my parents and made a choice that left them stunned. Growing up in a quiet Grand Rapids neighborhood, our house seemed like any middle-class home. My parents, George Walsh and Barbara Walsh, raised me and my brother 2 years older in a 3-bedroom ranch with a cozy backyard. My father, a mechanical engineer, came home with stories of fixing factory machines, while my mother, an insurance office clerk, kept our family's schedule tight. Back then, around 8 years old, I felt loved. We'd have Sunday dinners together, laughing over my father's bad jokes, my mother piling extra mashed potatoes on my plate. My brother and I built forts in the living room, giggling as we stole cookies from the jar. Those moments felt warm, like nothing could break us. But as we got older, things shifted. By 11, I noticed my brother Ryan Walsh chasing trends. At 13, he begged for $100 sneakers, flashing a grin to get his way. "He's growing up," my mother said, pulling cash from her purse. I didn't mind at first. I was happy playing board games with my father or reading library books. But when I asked for a $15 sketchbook at 12, my mother hesitated. "Money's tight," she said, her voice soft. I nodded, thinking we were all sacrificing. Then I saw her buy Ryan a new phone for $300, his old one barely a year old. The shift grew clearer. Ryan got his first credit card at 15 and ran up $400 in debt on video games and takeout. "He's learning," my father said, paying it off without a lecture. I asked for a $20 math workbook to practice for a school competition. "We'll see," my mother said, but it never came. I started saving my birthday money, stashing it in a tin box under my bed. I bought the workbook myself, studying late at night, my pencil scratching answers in the dim glow of a flashlight. Ryan's spending spiraled. At 16, he blew $800 on a used gaming console, swearing he'd repay it. My parents covered it, dipping into their savings. I overheard them late one night, my mother whispering, "We can't let him struggle." I sat on the stairs, my chest tight, wondering why my efforts didn't matter. At 13, I wanted a $30 backpack to replace my fraying one. "Use what you have," my father said, his tone sharp. The next week, he paid off Ryan's $500 phone bill. I taped my backpack's straps together, my cheeks hot with frustration. I started delivering newspapers, riding my bike before dawn to earn extra cash. I'd save every dollar, buying books on coding and math, teaching myself what I couldn't afford to learn otherwise. Ryan got a summer job at a pizza place but spent his paychecks on concert tickets and clothes. My parents called it finding himself. I stayed silent, but the unfairness stung. Why did his mistakes get a free pass while I had to fight for scraps? One spring, I saved $250 for a science camp. I showed my mother the flyer, my hands shaking with excitement. "We're short this month," she said, avoiding my eyes. Days later, she bought Ryan a $400 leather jacket. I went to my room, counted my savings, and took on extra babysitting gigs. I made it to that camp, standing among kids whose parents paid without blinking. It hit me. Then I was on my own. My parents' love, once equal, had tilted toward Ryan, leaving me to carve my own path. Those early years taught me to rely on myself. While my brother leaned on our parents, I built a quiet resilience. My mother once said, "We love you both the same." But as I grew up, Their actions told a different story. That shift, subtle at first, planted a seed of determination in me, one that would grow stronger with time. When I hit middle school, I fell in love with numbers and patterns. I'd spend hours at the Grand Rapids Library flipping through books on statistics, my fingers tracing charts and graphs. At 15, I found a free online course on data analysis and stayed up late, hunched over my ancient laptop, coding my first program. It felt like solving a puzzle, each line of code clicking into place. I aced my math classes, earning straight A's, and won a local math competition at 16, bringing home a $50 prize and a cheap plastic trophy. I rushed home, bursting to share the news, but my mother was on the phone, distracted. "That's nice," she said, barely glancing at me. My father wasn't even home. My brother Ryan was spiraling. At 17, he bought a beat-up car for $3,000, convincing my parents it was a good deal. He crashed it a month later, racking up a $1,000 repair bill. My father paid it, grumbling, but not hesitating. "He needs a car to get around," he said, when I asked why. I bit my tongue, my trophy sitting untouched on the kitchen counter. Ryan's debts kept growing: $500 on new clothes, then another $200 for car accessories. My parents dipped into their joint savings, the same account they'd always called family money. I started to realize that family meant Ryan. I kept pushing forward, signing up for advanced math and computer science classes in high school. I taught myself Python from free tutorials, spending weekends debugging code while my friends hung out. My teacher, Mrs. Larson, noticed my work and encouraged me to aim for a top university, maybe MIT or Stanford. At 17, I brought home a college brochure, my heart pounding with possibility. I showed it to my mother, explaining the programs and scholarships. "That sounds expensive," she said, her voice flat. I pressed, saying I could apply for financial aid. She shook her head. "We need to keep things fair for your brother." Fair Ryan had dropped out of community college after one semester, blowing his tuition on parties. I tried my father next, catching him after dinner. "Dad, I want to study data science at a good school," I said, sliding the brochure across the table. He sighed, rubbing his temples. "We can't afford to send you somewhere fancy," he said. "Your brother's already costing us enough." I stared, my chest tightening. Ryan's costs were self-inflicted: new wheels for his car, a $700 gaming laptop he barely used. I'd worked so hard, but they couldn't see it. I left the brochure on the table untouched. That rejection hit hard. I went to my room, my hands shaking as I opened my laptop. I kept studying, but the sting lingered. I won another math award at 18, this time with a $100 prize. I didn't bother telling my parents, they were too busy paying off Ryan's latest debt, a $400 bar tab from a weekend trip. Mrs. Larson became my biggest supporter, helping me apply for local scholarships. I started saving every penny from my part-time tutoring job, determined to make my dream happen without them. Looking back, those years showed me who I was. My love for data grew stronger, fueled by every late night spent coding, every problem I solved alone. My parents' dismissal hurt, but it pushed me to rely on myself. They thought fairness meant bailing out Ryan while ignoring my achievements. That lesson, painful as it was, set the stage for everything to come. My first day at Grand Valley State University was a mix of hope and exhaustion. I chose the local school in Grand Rapids to keep costs down, relying on a modest merit scholarship and a student loan that loomed over me. My dorm room was cramped with creaky pipes and a flickering light, but it was my chance to chase a data science degree. Tuition ate through my savings, leaving me counting every penny. I took a part-time job at a campus coffee shop, steaming milk and scrubbing counters until my arms ached. Most nights I ate instant noodles from a styrofoam cup heated in a shared microwave. Sleep was scarce. Some nights I got 4 hours, my eyes stinging as I pored over textbooks or debugged code for assignments, my desk lamp casting a dim glow. My roommate, Lori King, became my anchor. She saw my worn-out sneakers and bare fridge quietly sharing her snacks, half a granola bar, a handful of pretzels without making it feel like charity. "You're killing it," she'd say, her voice warm when I felt like giving up. We'd stay up late, her sketching for art class, me wrestling with algorithms, our chatter filling the quiet dorm. Lori's support was a lifeline pulling me through the hardest days. A few months in, I called home craving a connection. My mother picked up, sounding distracted. "Your brother's in Detroit now," she said. "We're helping with his apartment rent." Detroit was a 3-hour drive from Grand Rapids, but it felt like another planet. Ryan, now 20, had dropped out of community college and was chasing a vague dream of becoming a musician, spending his nights at bars. My parents were covering his rent, dipping into their savings to keep him afloat. I gripped the phone, my throat tight. "What about me?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "You've got your scholarship," my mother said, brushing me off. "You'll manage." I hung up, the sting of being overlooked cutting deeper than ever. I threw myself into work, picking up extra shifts at the coffee shop. My manager, Tom, a gruff guy with a soft spot for hard workers, let me cover weekends, my hands smelling of espresso grounds. I'd race from lectures to the shop, my backpack heavy with books, jotting notes on napkins during breaks. Meals were often day-old muffins from the shop, grabbed before they hit the trash. I'd study past midnight, my laptop's fan whirring, fighting to stay awake. Lori would leave a mug of her instant coffee on my desk, a small kindness that kept me going. "You're stronger than this," she said one night, handing me a warm drink. I nodded, too tired to speak. In my second year, a cousin mentioned my parents had bought Ryan new music equipment for his career. I was floored. I'd asked for a graphing calculator for my statistics class, a tool I needed to keep up. "Figure it out," my father had said, his tone final. I borrowed one from the library, lugging it across campus, my frustration simmering. I kept excelling, earning a spot in an advanced data analysis program, but the victories felt empty without my parents' notice. The contrast was stark. Ryan's failures were cushioned while I fought for every step. Lori caught me staring at my loan statements one evening, my face tight with worry. "You don't need their help," she said, her eyes steady. "You're building something real." She cooked us a rare dorm meal, macaroni from a box, and we talked about our futures, her art dreams, my data goals. Those nights with her reminded me I had someone in my corner. I took on summer tutoring jobs, teaching high school kids math, saving every bit I earned to chip away at my loan. Those college years tested me, but they shaped me. Lori's encouragement carried me through the exhaustion, the noodles, the endless shifts. My parents' choice to prop up Ryan while dismissing my struggle left a wound, but it also lit a fire. I wasn't just earning a degree, I was proving I could stand on my own. 4 years later, I crossed the graduation stage with a data science degree. At 22, I stood under the bright lights, my cap slightly tilted, clutching my diploma with a quiet sense of victory. A local tech startup in Grand Rapids hired me straight out of college, drawn to my portfolio of data projects built from years of self-study. I jumped into the role, crunching customer data and crafting predictive models, my desk a mess of notebooks and coffee mugs. The startup's fast-paced environment fit me perfectly. I loved untangling complex problems, each dataset a puzzle to solve. Within months, I was guiding a small team, my confidence growing with every successful project. My work caught the attention of Peter Cole, a senior manager at a larger tech firm in town. He offered me a position with bigger challenges, mentoring me through intricate algorithms and client presentations. "You've got a knack for this," Peter said one afternoon, leaning over my laptop to review a model. His support felt like a steady hand helping me sharpen my skills. I climbed the ranks, quickly landing a data analyst role, my days packed with coding and strategy meetings. The work was intense, but it was mine, a testament to what I'd built on my own. 3 years later, I bought a small apartment in Grand Rapids, a small apartment with hardwood floors and a view of the city skyline. It was a milestone I'd earned through my own sweat, a space that felt truly mine. I barely spoke to my family, even though we shared the same city. My parents were still caught up with Ryan, always rescuing him from his latest flop, a music studio that collapsed before it even started. I'd hear fragments from relatives, my mother covering his bills, my father signing off on another loan for him. I stopped reaching out, the weight of their favoritism too heavy. When I ran into my mother at a coffee shop, she gave a strained smile and said, "You're managing fine, right?" I nodded, my jaw tight, and left without another word. Living alone could feel isolating, but my neighbor Nancy Ward changed that. She was a warm-hearted woman in her 40s, her apartment always filled with the scent of homemade soup. One evening, she showed up at my door with a plate of warm cornbread. "Come eat with us," she said, her smile inviting. I hesitated, unused to such kindness, but followed her to her place. Her family, her husband, and two teenage daughters welcomed me with easy laughter, passing around dishes at their noisy dinner table. For the first time in years, I felt a spark of belonging, a warmth that eased the ache of my family's distance. Nancy's dinners became a regular escape. Her table was always crowded, her daughters bickering over dessert while her husband told corny jokes. I'd bring a pie I'd tried baking, usually a bit uneven, and Nancy would grin, saying, "It's perfect, because you made it." Those evenings reminded me of what family could feel like, filling a void I'd carried too long. I started sharing more, talking about my job, my pride in my work. "You've carved out something special," Nancy said one night, her voice firm. "Hold on to that." Her words sank in, softening the hurt of my parents' neglect. My career kept soaring. Peter encouraged me to tackle bigger projects like streamlining a client's marketing data. I'd work late, my apartment quiet except for the hum of my laptop refining models until they were flawless. I'd see Ryan's online posts, new music gear, another big plan that went nowhere, knowing my parents were still propping him up. It stung, but I poured that pain into my work, determined to prove my worth. My success was my own, built from years of late-night study and relentless drive. Those post-college years shaped who I was. Peter's mentorship and Nancy's warmth gave me the strength to keep going, even as my family's distance lingered like a bruise. I'd built a life I was proud of, standing firm on my own terms, ready for whatever lay ahead. One chilly evening in my Grand Rapids apartment, my phone buzzed with my mother's name. I stared at the screen, my dinner cooling on the counter, the soft glow of city lights filtering through my window. We hadn't spoken in months, and my stomach knotted as I answered. My mother's voice was unsteady, far from her usual sharp tone. "We're in trouble," she said, her words spilling out. She confessed that unpaid credit card bills and Ryan's latest failed music venture, a recording studio that never took off, had pushed the family to the brink of losing their home. My heart sank as she pleaded for help to fend off the bank. Then came the blow. "We used the money your grandmother left you." My mother said, her voice barely audible. A small inheritance from my grandmother meant for me to build my future had been siphoned off to fund Ryan's dreams. They'd kept it secret, never asking my permission. My breath caught a wave of betrayal washing over me. I'd clawed my way through college with loans and coffee shop shifts, surviving on instant noodles, while they gave my inheritance to my brother. "How could you do that?" I asked, my voice trembling. "It was for the family's sake," my mother replied, brushing off my anger. I hung up my hands, shaking the sting of their deceit sharp in my chest. I paced my apartment, the hardwood floors creaking under my steps. That inheritance was more than money. It was my grandmother's faith in me, a lifeline I'd never known I had. The unfairness I'd felt for years now burned fiercer, a wound ripped open. I needed clarity, so I called Judith Neal, my colleague and closest friend at the tech firm. Her no-nonsense perspective always grounded me. We met at a cozy cafe, the hum of conversation mixing with the clink of mugs. Over steaming coffee, I laid out everything: my mother's call, the stolen inheritance, Ryan's string of failures. Judith leaned forward, her eyes intense. "They've gone too far," she said, her voice firm. You've built your life without them. Don't let them take advantage now. She urged me to confront them face to face to demand the truth. You're not their doormat, she said, her words cutting through my doubt. Her resolve fueled mine, a fire igniting within me. A few days later, an invitation arrived for a cousin's wedding that weekend in Grand Rapids. My parents and Ryan would be there, and I knew it was my chance to face them. The elegant card sat on my table, its gold lettering a stark contrast to the anger simmering inside me. I spent the week replaying my mother's words, each memory sharpening my resolve. I dug through old emails, finding a message from my grandmother's lawyer confirming the inheritance proof they'd hidden it from me. My pulse quickened as I imagined standing before them, no longer the daughter who stayed silent. Judith checked in daily, her texts short and fierce. Show them who you are, she wrote one night as I packed a small bag for the wedding. Her belief in me, alongside the life I'd carved out, Nancy's warm dinners, Peter's steady mentorship, gave me strength. This confrontation wasn't just about the inheritance. It was about reclaiming my worth after years of being overlooked. On the morning of the wedding, I stood in my apartment, my car keys clenched in my hand. The drive across town would be short, but it felt like crossing into a storm. I pictured my mother's uneasy smile, my father's dismissive nod, Ryan's careless shrug. I wasn't the girl who'd begged for their attention years ago. I was someone who'd fought for every milestone, who'd earned her place. With Judith's words echoing in my head, I slipped on my coat and walked out, ready to face the truth and demand what was mine. I drove across Grand Rapids to my cousin's wedding at a downtown banquet hall, my heart pounding. The city lights blurred past, the weight of the confrontation ahead pressing on my chest. Inside, the hall glowed with chandeliers, laughter and music spilling out as I stepped through the doors, my invitation crumpled in my pocket. I spotted my parents, George and Barbara Walsh, near the bar, my father's tie loose, my mother fidgeting with her glass. Ryan stood nearby, chatting with relatives, his smile easy as ever. My resolve hardened as I walked toward them. I pulled them aside to a quiet corner, the clink of glasses fading behind us. We need to talk, I said, my voice steady, despite the knot in my stomach. I laid it all out, the years of their favoritism, the inheritance from my grandmother they'd taken for Ryan's failed ventures. You chose him over me, every time I said, my eyes locked on theirs. I want you to admit it. My father's face tightened, his voice sharp. You're too sensitive, Paula, he said. We did what was best for the family. My mother tried to soften things, her hands fluttering. We didn't mean to hurt you, she said, but her words rang hollow, dodging the truth. Ryan shifted, his usual confidence faltering. I know I got more help, he admitted, glancing at our parents. But it's not my fault they decided that. His honesty surprised me, but it changed nothing. Their choices were theirs alone. I took a deep breath, my voice firm. I'm not bailing you out, I said. And I'm done with this. The words hung heavy as I turned away, their stunned silence following me. My mother called my name, but I kept walking, the weight of years lifting with each step. Back at my apartment after the wedding, I sank onto the couch, the quiet wrapping around me. Relief, mixed with a deep ache, cutting ties was freedom, but it hurt to lose what little family I had left. I thought of my grandmother's inheritance, meant to be my start, now gone. I'd built my life without it, but the betrayal still stung. Yet in that moment, I felt lighter, unburdened by their expectations. I'd chosen myself, and that was enough. Months later, I heard through a cousin that my parents had lost their house. They'd moved into a small rented apartment in Grand Rapids, their pride bruised as they adjusted to a simpler life. Ryan, cut off from their support, took a part-time job at a music store, scraping by without their safety net. I felt a pang of guilt, but it faded quickly. They'd made their choices just as I'd made mine. I found peace with my chosen family. Judith Neal, my fierce friend from work, invited me to her place for game nights, her laughter pulling me out of dark moments. Lori King, my college mentor, sent encouraging emails checking in on my career. Nancy Ward's Sunday dinners remained a haven, her warm kitchen a reminder of what family could be. My career thrived. I led bigger projects at the tech firm, my confidence growing with each success. I'd built a life on my terms, surrounded by people who saw my worth. Looking back, I learned that setting boundaries, even with family, is sometimes the only way to protect yourself. It's painful to walk away, but holding on to your own value is worth it. I'm grateful for those who supported me: Judith's blunt wisdom, Lori's steady guidance, Nancy's open heart. They showed me family isn't just blood, it's the people who lift you up. To everyone who's followed my story, thank you for listening. It's not easy to share these pieces of my life, but I hope they resonate with you. If you've faced similar struggles or had to set hard boundaries, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share them below. What's your story?